video is all about grief and grieving. I know a lot of your families at the moment have lost someone that they've loved very much, and that creates what's called grief. Grief is the term that we use to describe all the different emotions and different powerful feelings that happen when someone we love dies. It's really hard for someone who hasn't experienced grief to imagine what it might be like. But grief is really raw and intense and powerful. It's not just the same as being a bit sad or unhappy. It's all encompassing. It can feel quite overwhelming, and that's when it just takes over your whole body and your whole mind. It's really hard to feel a different way or think a different way. There aren't any rules really around grief. Some people believe that how deeply you've loved somebody is how deeply that you're going to grieve for them. But that doesn't mean how well or how often you saw that person. So it could be that a family friend has died, or one of your distant relatives have died. You might only have seen them a few times, but if in those few times you saw each other, they were really special and that person was important to you, then your grief is going to be powerful. Grief comes with so many different emotions, and often so many different emotions all being felt at once. You might be feeling really sad, really angry actually with the person who died, angry that they've left you. You might be feeling very confused. You might be feeling guilty, and a sense of, if you had done something differently, would that person still be alive? You might be feeling despair and anguish. You might be feeling nothing. You might be feeling at the moment so in shock and so numb, which is your body's way of protecting itself so that you're not experiencing all these emotions all at once. You might be feeling just nothing. But there is no right or wrong way, and you'll find that different people grieve in different ways, and in your family perhaps everyone is grieving differently. Some people might be really teary, like really crying all the time. Other people might not have cried even once. Some people might be really quiet and just want time on their own, kind of shut themselves away a bit, whereas other people might just really want company at the moment, really need to be around other people. Some people might like to talk a lot about the person who's died and how they're feeling. Other people might just not want to talk about it at all. There's no right or wrong way, and all of these are completely natural. So that's really important for you to know. Grief can feel quite scary sometimes because the feelings we have are so powerful. They can actually feel like physical pain in our body, particularly in our chests, in our heart. You might have heard the term heartbroken, and actually with grief, it might be one of the first times you actually understand what that means. That those emotions are so powerful, you actually feel like your heart has broken, or that somebody's punched you in the chest. It physically hurts. You might have a real physical tummy ache at the moment. You might be feeling tight sensations all across your chest, like you can't breathe properly. All of these are normal and they won't last forever. It could be that you're not the person that is grieving very powerfully at the moment. You might be upset, but it might be perhaps your mum or your dad who are experiencing these really intense symptoms. That can feel quite scary sometimes because our parents aren't behaving in the same way as normal. Things feel very different. You might find that yourself, if you're experiencing grief, or your parents might be getting very quick to get angry or cross or upset at the moment. So things that normally they'd be okay with, they're getting cross with, like putting your shoes and leaving them on the floor instead of putting them away, or leaving a towel on the floor. You might find that they get very, very cross very quickly. This again is all normal. It's part of intense emotions and intense grief. Grief tends to come in waves. So if you imagine you're at a beach and you can see the waves rolling in from the sea, some have those really big waves or the big foamy white on them. Grief is a little bit like that. So you might find that actually you're fine, you're getting on with stuff, and then suddenly a big wave of grief will come and hit, and all of a sudden those big feelings you'll start to feel again. That happens to everybody with grief. I am going to do a separate video on how long grief lasts for and does grief go away. So I'll explain all of that in more detail. But having these feelings of coming and going again is completely normal. Part of that is actually your brain's way of trying to keep you safe. Grief can feel so overwhelming and a bit scary, but actually when you know why your body is acting in the way it does, it can make things a lot easier to deal with. I am going to do a separate video all about the stress response, which will go into it in more detail. But your brain has a survival instinct, a survival mechanism that helps keep you safe. And it's called your flight, fight, or freeze response, or the stress response. Now, when somebody dies, even though you're not in physical danger, your brain is telling your body that it's not safe. Someone you died has just loved, and you're full of all these huge emotions, and it has turned on the stress response in your brain. Now, the stress response gets your body ready to do three things: to either fight, to run away, flight, or to freeze, to play dead. And this is what helped keep us safe as cavemen. So if a saber-toothed tiger came along, our body would help keep us safe to either fight the tiger, run away from the tiger, or play dead. We still have that mechanism today, and your body and your brain right now are feeling like they're not safe. When the stress response gets turned on, you can't think clearly, you can't think straight, you find it really hard to relax. Your body might just feel really strange, like you don't quite fit in it, you can't relax, you're on edge, you're jittery. You get really difficulty feeling like you can breathe properly, that your chest is hurting, your stomach is in knots, that kind of really twisty feeling. Maybe you're not hungry. All these feel so uncomfortable, and it's quite scary not feeling in control of your body. But when you know that it's your brain's way of trying to keep you safe, it's turned on your stress response, it can make it a bit easier, because your stress response can be turned off. And there are ways that you can do this. It's not a sudden change, so you can't just one day do one thing and it will turn off. But I'm going to make you some videos for you to understand and learn all the different ways to lower your stress response until it turns off, and to help you feel calm and peaceful and more in control of your grief and all of these big worries. So I hope this video has helped you understand a little bit more about what the word grief means, about how powerful grief is, and actually not everyone will understand that. People can empathize, and your friends will want to help you feel better, but they won't necessarily understand how you're feeling unless they've experienced losing someone they've loved as well. So bear that in mind. If a friend says something wrong, or you feel like they're just not understanding, it's not because they don't care, it's because it's almost impossible to know how you're feeling unless they've experienced it themselves. So check out the other videos, particularly for mindfulness. This is one of the most powerful ways to calm your stress response, and the more you do it, the lower your stress response comes. Check out the sleep video, because grief often comes hand in hand with very difficult dreaming and sleeping, often nightmares. And then make sure that you're eating healthily, can be very tempting to eat loads of chocolates and crisps and ice cream thinking that it's going to make us feel better. But actually, in the long run, it can make us feel worse. And make sure that you're getting a decent night's sleep every day. So you'll find that in a sleep video as well. I hope this has been a bit more helpful for you. If you want to know a little bit more, check out the Does Grief Get Better? Does Grief Go Away video, because that will help you understand a little bit more about how you can control your grief and what to expect. As always, all the adults at Earlham are thinking about you.